wherever you are, because somewhere is always cocktail o'clock. Today I want to talk to you about, and I want to give you 8 reasons why you should be moving away from Sydney, Melbourne, Brisbane or the Gold Coast. If that's where you live, why you should be packing your bags and be elsewhere. Hi, my name is Gabby Anderson-Courtney and I am a self-confessed travel addict. And I will be honest with you, you might say it's easier for you, Gabby, because you lived in a lot of places, and I have. I was born in Hungary, but at 19, I moved to Egypt. And from there on, I moved to Italy. And I lived in Italy for 3 years. And then from that on, I moved to London, and I lived in London for 5 years. And then I moved to Australia. And I've been here since 1996. And when I came to Australia, I moved to Perth. But then 5 years ago, I moved to the Gold Coast with my husband. And we lived there for 5 years. And you know what they say, you don't know what you got until you lose it or you don't have it anymore. And while living on the Gold Coast, and as amazing as it was, living on the Gold Coast is great, as Tommy Tate sells it to you. And he's an absolute icon, that man. But there are a lot of drawbacks of living on the Gold Coast or Brisbane or Sydney or Melbourne. And after 5 years living there, my husband and I decided to move back to Perth. And I'm telling you, I never had that much fun in my life since we moved back, which is something that we didn't have living on the Gold Coast. And this is something I'm going to go into. So please stick with me and I will tell you how life changed and why is it better living in Perth than being on the Gold Coast. Number 1, if you have a job like I do, that you can work remotely or you can work from anywhere, why be in one place? You can move around, you can do whatever you want. You have that freedom to be more than one place. So you can pack up your bags, you can go, you can do whatever you like. You don't need to stick to one place. You can be somewhere else where you're happier or wherever you want to be. I have a friend of mine who moves with the seasons. I'm not suggesting that everybody can do that, but right now he's in Europe. Because in Australia, it's May, it's getting a bit colder, and he doesn't like the cold. And I've just had a chat to him yesterday, and he told me he's not coming back till September. That is great. If you can do that, that's amazing. I know not everyone can. But if you have a remote job, or you have a job that you work for yourself and you can work from anywhere, you have that freedom, and I will urge you to use that freedom. Living on the Gold Coast, I realized that unfortunately how overpopulated the Gold Coast now is. Even in just that, within that 5 years that I've been living there, it has changed dramatically. When we got there, we got there in 2020 and it was during COVID, so there was nobody on the streets and it was very different. But when we came out of COVID and we started to go out and visiting restaurants and going to venues, it was different. And then suddenly, in 5 years, it changed to a point that my husband and I never went anywhere on the weekend. The weekends were strictly staying at home because I knew we can't get anywhere. We had events that we went to and we were searching for parking for an event and we couldn't find any. And when I say search for parking, we searched within like a 2K radius. We both in our mid-50s, but we're happy to walk, we're quite fit and healthy. We thought 2Ks, we can walk there and back, and we couldn't find any. Not side streets, not shopping centers, there was no parking. So literally we had to turn around and go home. It's extremely common that there's a wait list for events, for places, wherever you go. There's just so many people there that we ended up going out on weekdays, even on weekdays, preferably at lunchtime. And the majority of people are at work and we don't have to worry about, traffic and is there going to be parking or not. And that's kind of sad. That's getting a little bit ridiculous that you have to organize your social life around when there are no people around, when people are at work, so you can actually go and have a meal in a restaurant. And that is extremely different in Perth. We've been here a month. We've been going out a lot, and we don't limit of when we're going out, of is it the weekend, is it the evening. We can go out anytime. We went out on Saturday, we found a parking spot without a problem. Traffic is not that bad. It's very different. You need to have that life when you can go out anytime you want to. That was the cocktail glass. Anytime you want to, and not being limited by, my God, there's going to be too many people on the road, better not go anywhere and stay at home. So number 3, let's talk about the traffic. Traffic is insane. If you live in the Brisbane Gold Coast area, you know that the M1 is literally impossible to get anywhere to. And for some strange reason, most people going south, like all the time. I lived on the North Gold Coast, and if I wanted to go south to Robina or towards the New South Wales border, no matter what time I went, the M1 was always full. Going to Brisbane is insane. At one point I went to Brisbane probably 3 days a week, and I had to go between 6:30 and 7 a.m. That's when I had to leave to be able to get there in time. If I would have gone around 8 o'clock, it would have taken me an hour and a half. I've just spoken to a friend of mine not that long ago, and she's told me that it took her from Pimpama to Bigger Waters, where she lives, an hour. That shouldn't take an hour. So I'm sure in Sydney, I've been to Sydney, I know what the traffic is like. Sydney, Melbourne, Brisbane, the traffic is just crazy. So why not go somewhere where you can actually get around without you taking an hour to get to the next suburb? Number 4, the climate. This is very hard to talk about because some people enjoy this real hot and humid weather that the Gold Coast is and Brisbane is. I'm not one of them. And most women in their 50s are not gonna be liking that. Humidity is extremely high all the time. And when it rains, it gets impossible. Most of the time you're stuck inside with the air conditioning on because you can't even breathe. You sweat all the time. Your hair won't dry because there's just so much water in the air. And sometimes you feel like you're breathing in water when you're breathing. So yeah, I'm not a fan of humidity. I have to admit that the Gold Coast is lovely at winter because it doesn't get really cold. I know that last winter we had the heating on maybe twice, the whole winter. So, for a day or two, and that was it. And let's talk about the cyclones. So nobody thought that that can happen. And suddenly Cyclone Alfred came, and look what happened. People are isolating, putting themselves in their house, and, sandbags, fighting for toilet paper in the shops. It was insane. I'll be honest, where I was, I'm sure a lot of people copped it a lot worse than I have, but where we were, it wasn't that bad. It wasn't horrific. We had a lot of rain and all that, but not even a tree branch broke. So, and I know a lot of people had worse. But what I heard also now is that getting insurance for your house is ridiculous. It's just insane what you have to pay because suddenly insurance companies realize the cyclones can come through and they can cause a lot of damage, and people want to insure their homes and they need to compensate. So it's not great. And that's what the other thing we're going to talk about in a second, which is prices. Okay, so let's talk about prices. Number 5. Perth is a lot cheaper than the Gold Coast or Brisbane or Sydney or Melbourne. First of all, insurances are a lot cheaper. There's no cyclones here. I lived in Perth, as I said, from 1996 till 5 years ago, and it did not flood once. There's no flood, there's no extreme weather that I know of. WA is different. I'm talking about Perth. WA, especially in the north of WA, can get some extreme weather, but Perth doesn't really have anything too major. Every now and then a storm comes through and a couple of fences go down, but that's about it. It's as bad as it's gonna get. Cheaper is not only about insurance, cheaper is everything else. Restaurants. We've been dining out a lot since we've been here, and it doesn't seem to be an issue. There's no overinflated prices. Houses are a lot cheaper. So if you own something in Sydney, Melbourne, Brisbane, Gold Coast, and you sell it and you come to Perth, you'll find something bigger, better, and cheaper. I can guarantee you that. That's exactly what we did. You will end up selling your house, buying something very nice, and you'll end up with money in the bank. So really there's nothing to lose there. Perth used to be more expensive with the mining boom and you know, every now and then when I visited Perth, when I was living on the Gold Coast, I found that yeah, it's not that cheap, but suddenly the tides have turned, and we can go out to a restaurant and pay a lot less than what we would pay on the Gold Coast of Brisbane or Sydney or Melbourne. Number 6, so let's talk about properties. Perth has got great diversity when it comes to properties that you can buy. And buying is a lot cheaper than renting and a lot easier than renting. There's not many rentals in Perth. But if you feel like having a big house and having the country life, you can do that. If you feel like you want inner city living like we did and get an apartment, it won't be hard to do that. Or if you want the best of both worlds, you can get a townhouse anywhere. You will get it again. It will be a lot cheaper than buying any properties in Sydney or Melbourne or Brisbane or on the Gold Coast. It's not going to be hard to find what you're looking for. I mean, I started looking in January, and by early March, end of February, I found exactly what we were looking for. Like, we had a list and we had the requirements of what we will not do without or what we'll not compromise on, like ducted air conditioning, things like that, locations. I had a list of suburbs that we will only accept these suburbs. And it took me about a month and a half to 2 months to find everything that we were looking for. So it's definitely a lot cheaper and quality is a lot better, I find. Number 7, let's talk about Perth itself. Perth is a beautiful city. It has a lot to offer, and whatever you do, you will find something that will appeal to you. If you like the beach, Perth has got one of the most amazing beaches. I'm not a beach bum. I don't like sand in my knickers, so you know it's not something for me. But I love to go down to the beach and have a walk on the beach and put my feet in the water and watch the sunset. There's a lot to offer for people. Perth has a lot to offer for people who love the beach. Whether it be surfing or swimming or just, you know, lazing around the beach, Perth got one of the most amazing beaches. Perth got a very rich cultural life. There's so much happening here. I literally, since we've been here a month ago, I've been booking tickets for events for us because I look at it and I go, we can't miss this. There's just so much happening. It's great. Perth's got a great nightlife. Perth has a great coffee culture. So there's lots of coffee strips that are amazing. And Perth has a lot of pubs that are can be very diverse. Anything from just popping in for a drink to high-end bars. It's really a no-brainer. There's not much that you cannot do in Perth. Number 8. If you think that's something you can't do in Perth, because it does happen that certain artists don't come to Perth because it's too far away and they prefer to do just Sydney, Melbourne, Brisbane. Realistically, these places are not that far away. If you're hell-bent of going on an event that it's not in Perth, Sydney is 4 hours on a plane. Melbourne is 3.5 hours. Brisbane is 4.5 hours. And Bali is 3.5 hours. So everything is really close. It's not a big deal. You're not going to Europe and traveling, 28 hours on a plane. It's all under 5 hours. You jump on a plane, you can always find deals to get to places, and you can always find deals on accommodation. A lot of people like the East Coast because they say, oh, but it's so easy to travel between cities there because Sydney, Melbourne, Brisbane, they're very close to each other. And I say that's true, but since you've been living there, how often did you actually pop down to Sydney or Melbourne? Or, you might be one of the few who does, but the majority of people who hell-bent on living on the East Coast for the reason of because everything is so close, you find they never really move out of where they are. They never really go anywhere. I know a lot of people in Brisbane who live there because they want to be close to Sydney and Melbourne, and in years they haven't been to Sydney or Melbourne. So in the end, from Perth, you can always jump on a plane and go anywhere. Now, I do understand that some people are at certain places because they have family there and they don't want to leave family. And I 100% understand that. I have a daughter who actually lives in Perth. So that was one of the reasons, a very strong reason why we also came back here. But if you're not that keen on Perth, there are so many other places. You need to have a look at of what climate you're looking for. What are the things that you're looking for where you want to live that you will not compromise on? And have a look at other places in Australia. I mean, WA is a big, big state. There's a lot of places here. There are a lot of things that you can do at various locations. I mean, if you like the warm weather and you don't want to be in the cold Perth winter, have a look at Broome. Broome's an amazing place. If you want the cold, because that's what you like, look at Hobart. There are lots of places everywhere. So this is just a little video to give you some ideas and to put that little seed in your brain, to open your horizons and see if you're struggling in Brisbane, Sydney, Melbourne, or on the Gold Coast, have a look at where else you can be, where else you'd be happier. Thank you for listening. Bye.